The haunting legends of a mighty Bigfoot have made man's blood run cold for centuries, some terrific and some terrifying. The southern Appalachian Mountains whisper the mysteries of this strange and powerful creature through its smoky hills and ominous embrace. This is Brandon Thomas with Expanding Reality, elated to announce our very first Expanding Reality Excursions Befriending Bigfoot event. This is going to take place on a beautiful 27-acre ranch in Blairsville, Georgia, May 15th through the 20th. This intimate conference is going to feature Bigfoot adventure hikes in 3 different states, river kayaking, nightly presentations from such incredible presenters as Alexander Petikoff, Chris Matthew, Dave Zed, Preston Dennett, and many more. Also, we're going to be doing some UFO watching, some jam sessions, all kinds of hangouts. Visit expandingrealitypodcast.com/events for more information. That's expandingrealitypodcast.com/events. We'll see you there.
A choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality. A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Ben fucking Rosenberg, welcome back, dude. It's so good to see you, man.
Yes. Awesome to see you, Brad, as well. Thanks for having me again.
So I was just telling you ahead of time here beforehand that a lot of folks have reached out. There's been some guests throughout the years that have, people have just been like, hey, what happened to that person? And you've been number one on the list, I'll be honest with you. People, you come in, you mesmerize with your other episodes, going to be linked below, episode 151 and 168. Also, you were on an AI panel that we did for our X panel series a couple of years ago, the first one actually, and that one's going to be located on Patreon for our Value Exchange audience. But you can also join us down there for live recordings of these things, the Patreon hangouts, all that kind of stuff. So highly recommend it. But anyway, all the ways to find you, including all the stuff I just said, and your website, of course, thesoulwhisperer.is, as well as your Merlin One podcast, which we're going to talk about, Merlin's Cave podcast, rather. We're going to talk about that episode that you brought up with the document that you also sent me with Ben. I'm so fucking pumped to see you again, dude. So to wrap this up here, it's good to fucking see you, man. People have been requesting the shit out of you. People were like, what the fuck happened to Ben? And then to the audience there, all things linked below, so go find him there. Dude, it's good to see you. What's up?
Thank you, Brad. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah. Oh, it's been about 14 months since I was last on, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then you disappeared. You went into a Merlin's cave for like a while, and I'm sure you're going to talk about it, but dude.
Yeah, well, I only did a couple of episodes, and I touched on implants. I touched on Bucegi Mountains, ancient tech. And as you know, I label myself Soul Whisperer. And unfortunately, the stuff that I talk about is brainy shit. You know, it's stuff that's keeping you in your head and people in the loop. But the whole reason for obviously going through that is to help people try and navigate through that maze that we're in, you know, mental maze. Because there's just so much information out there, isn't there? You know, and people are like, hey, did you know this? Did you know this? And you just got to try and help people kind of wind back in and find that center of the maze to get centered. And so that was the purpose of Merlin's Cave. But on it, like you just mentioned, that one in particular, I think is really quite prevalent and relevant as well to so many different topics. But as you know, we're going to cover quite a few different topics on this show. So you kick off where you want to, Brent. And thank you, viewers, as well, for asking about me. I was abducted for a couple of months. Joke. No, seriously, I just needed time out. But it's great just to be back on the show. And yeah, hopefully see you all soon.
You always have a home here, and this is the definition of that. You know, you go away, you sort yourself, you get into that cave, man, go introspective. I had a dark fucking time, man. These folks are, I'm sure, very ready to not hear me talk about it anymore. But either way, had a real dark time there, but I was sort of still in the mix with it. I did recluse at my own sort of area, and I mean, that found to be the greatest thing I could have ever done, was just kind of give myself a minute, dude. Let's take it back to square one. Let's reevaluate where we are so far and see where we're at. And I mean, there's so much value in the growth that occurs there, but man, it's challenging and it's best to do it alone. So it's wise for you to, I think it's one of the wisest things you could have done is just sort of backed out for a minute, said, hey dude, I'll see you later. And then, you sent me a message, I think. And then we had a meeting like the next day or something. And here we are, of course. Yeah. Come on back, man. Tell us what you found. And yes, we have a ton of amazing things to talk about here. You sent me a list of topics, neural hacking, all the levels. And you sent me this document, The Secret of Secrets, the Bucegi Mountain Secrets, which we're going to talk about, dude. All of this is wild, guys. We're talking narratives and furthering in the agendas, the neural hacking, again, the ancient tech, Ghost in the Machine, and spirit and soul. So there's a lot to cover here, man. Where would you like to begin, my friend?
Where do we begin? Okay. I feel like Dr. Evil in my new chair, you see. I just need the cat. I'll tell you what, let's do this for I say beginners, people who are just starting to question reality. And I think probably the most prominent one, Brand, and this does lead into the neural hacking, the narratives. Let's start with the biggest event that's happened, which has affected everybody within this century, which is 9/11.
Oh, Bob Barker dying is what I was going to say for the third time, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And when I say that, probably the youngsters who were born post 9/11, they don't know any different. They've only ever known what they've known. But I suppose it starts off on a real basic thought pattern, right? So we were led to believe, right? And I don't want to get into all the this and that, but I'm just trying to do a skim over. And this is just one of the ways that the narratives kind of control our thoughts, our beliefs, our patterns, our behaviors. So 9/11 happens. We're all told it's, Afghanistan and, Al-Qaeda, let's say. And then as things start to stretch out, you start taking a pan out of, look at the bigger picture. And you look at the actual social implications of what happened. So you then look at travel, right? You look at the increase in security. You look at the increase in costs. You look at, and this came into my thought process a couple of months ago, is that, there's little bottles you can only travel with a 150 ml, right?
Yeah.
The manufacturing of that, the companies that are pumping that out. So then, if you're aware, like, the Bilderberg Group or the committee of 300, whatever, there are people pulling these strings, right? But of course, on this level where we're at from media, right, we're told and we believe, and we have been believing that this is the story, that it's Al-Qaeda, it's a terrorist attack. They hate the infidels and they just want to, kill everybody. So obviously the fear projection is there. And that's just one little example within that timeline. So 2001 happens, we're now 2024. The same shit has been playing out for years, right? And everybody within that projection of it is part of the system. They're all part of this narrative reading story, right? Which is kind of keeping us in a loop, kind of, it's not just 9/11. I'm just taking that as most recent big event, let's say. There's the World Wars, there's, Vietnam, there's so many. So yeah, that's kind of just one of the levels of the hacking. And then if you really look into it, you can just see so many different subplots feeding off what happened after 9/11. So many things changed. So I suppose, like everybody, don't believe the media. Don't believe what you're told,
It's a good indicator of what's not going on and where you can sort of gauge where to look for what is going on. Right. You can know that if they're saying something, you're being lied to. So therefore, what's, perhaps going on in the back scenes, that either they're trying for you not to see, like that's they're covering up in the algorithms or something like that for the news feeds to stay and remain on Taylor Swift or something in the Super Bowl, rather than all the stuff going on with the head of the Nigerian bank's helicopter crash in America and taking out his whole family in the airs and all that to one of the biggest banks in Africa. And so it's really interesting when they do sort of hack you. And I love your approach with this because, yes, it is a mental hacking, but it affects you on a biological level. So at that point, it's biohacking, right? They're really, if they're getting to you mentally, what they're doing is they're able to implant or infect you with their idea, which one could then view as a parasite, because you're going to grab onto that thing. Your body's going to hang on to it and just love on it and let it breathe and swim around and possess you in a way, if you're listening to it. And so it's a fascinating approach. And it seems to be that we have seen how it works.
Big time. That's absolutely spot on, Brand. It is like a biohacking, right? And it's like in front of your nose that's happening, and the day-to-day life. I mean, right, here's one little example. They'll glorify a story. There was an American sniper. I've forgotten his name now. They made a film after him. Chris.
Damn it. I'll look it up. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, they did a huge story of him, and he was hailed a hero. He had longest shots, most confirmed kills. And the point being is, right, we then get sucked into the details of the war, and then we're emotionally embroiled to that situation. And we're like, yeah, well, he killed the bad people. We know stuff has come out. Tim Osman, I'm sure for people who aren't aware who Tim Osman is, apparently he was Osama bin Laden, a CIA asset. Right. So there's all these different subplots now which have come out, which we can see have kind of blown this whole terrorist thing out of the water. That actually it wasn't for terrorism. Worldwide shock, more control, more fear, more money. And
more
again,
mind parasites, yeah.
More mind parasites, yeah, 100%.
And it's Navy SEAL Chris Kyle.
Chris
pinpoint
Kyle,
accuracy saved continuous lives on the battlefield, turning him into a legend. And 255 kills from 4 tours in Iraq.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, you're looking at a dude like that just going, Merca, and yeah, it's interesting. It's even the whole psychology of it. It's a horrible place and horrible things are occurring. But within all of this, guys, comes this man who can snipe down 255 people who want to kill your baby. And it's like, no, maybe they don't. Maybe you ran in there and are overthrowing their government for a coup and using this dude to snipe people out. And we're not saying that people are in cahoots with this, but I think that there's so much going on behind the scenes as people being used for pawns, and it's shown in the military way. And I love military folks. I have a high reverence for folks who choose to go into the military, but what they're assigned to do, in most times, if it's not asinine and boring and very unchallenging and mentally unstimulating, then it's really deadly and also very nerve-wracking and also very not on the level most times as far as the overarching agenda that's going on. It seems to be, again, that they're just pieces being moved on the board. And U.S. having the strongest military, they're like the military arm of the 3 different factions, right? It's the Vatican, which is the spiritual side of it. London's the banking, and U.S. is the military. And so they sort of have these 3 mental strangleholds, or I don't know, perception management campaigns, we'll say, on everyone here. And it's fascinating. That's right. They do. And very well put. I am not anti-military, far from it. My family, majority of them were in the military, they served. So I've got the utmost respect for the balls of these people going out and serving the country. However, the picture that is painted to them to go and serve their country is not the right picture. So then you arguably get into, can we trust the soul dyers, soldiers? Yeah, that's in Word Magic, Pao Chang, by the way. Good pull. Yeah, we're getting into that now. But, can you trust these people? Do you know what? Yeah, sure, they would probably put themselves on the line to save you and, die. But ultimately, they're so brainwashed in relation, and they have to be, in order to listen to command. This is your command. You must go and kill that objective. And they will do it because that's what they've been told. But what happens if that objective is nothing to do with anything? It's just a hit list, And again, look, let's take this back to the world wars as well. We know full well that the German royal family were the British royal family, an extension of, right? The royal families have weight. They could have stopped the war, but they didn't. It was one big soul purge across the plane of existence. And I'm not going to say globe because I'm anti-globe, you know that. But it was just soul management. Too many souls. Let's clear them off. Yeah, and then you had Rockefeller with Standard Oil, who was funding both sides of the war by providing the oil for the Nazi planes because they needed that specific oil from him to be able to run their planes. And so he's funding both sides. War always makes money for everybody involved, and it's never about winning any ideology in which they propose the war is being fought over. It's never about that. It's always about conquest, subjugation, domination. And you can look at sort of the people who have been installed in power after America comes in and liberates this area, or any global power. The British have done the shit out of this, right? I think we took a hard lesson from you guys and learned sort of how to do it. And then y'all look at us and go, God damn, we thought we were fucking tough. But it's interesting to see sort of, the psychological campaign. And that's what this is all about. It's narratives. It's furthering the agenda. It's really about, I think, putting you in a state of fear. And that's really what it seems to be. I've sort of even been looking at the dogman phenomena and UFOs and aliens and all of this shit as simply a version or a manifestation of this haunted house that we live in. And it's simply that. It's a haunted fucking house that you're terrified of. But if you can get over being terrified of it, it just stops manifesting for you. So therefore, the wars will stop being profitable because nobody will be getting energy into it. People will lay down their guns and say, hey, I'm not, I'm all about protecting my country, but this is not that. And being able to see and delineate and then have the choice. Like if you had the choice for soldiers to go in on shit like that, I think things would be a lot different. Hey, here's exactly why we're doing what we're doing. The same thing whenever they're passing bills in Congress or something. There's so many, like 1,500 things in this bill where all these lobbyists get their ways. People get side contracts. People get these little kickbacks here's and there's, and a lot of compromise of boundaries within that to get one thing passed that they tell you is what's going on. Hey, don't let babies die in this thing. And they're like, hey, don't let babies die. You got to vote for this, right? Because you don't want babies to die. But in all of that other shit is funding for abortions. It's funding for fetal implant surgeries into research programs to where they can find out how to clone people. It's, all of this weird shit packaged into these interesting bills, and then also come with contracts to go level a country and take over their government and then install our own so that we can have a wind farm there. It's fucking, you know what I mean? All of this convoluted nonsense. And so there's no transparency in it, and there doesn't seem to be a way to navigate it. So do you find that participating in that is valuable at all? Do you think voting is a thing that you find to be a worthy investment of your time?
Oh, fuck no. Fuck no. Without a doubt. Dude,
what would you rather do with that time, Ben?
It's a rigged system. Off the top of my head, I prefer to go and create something to spend time with other souls who feel the same. I think anything. Absolutely. Fuck, I'll go and play tennis if I have to, Yeah. But look, it's a rigged system, and it only gets more rigged. Do you honestly think that your vote's going to have a change or have an impact? All presidents, all prime ministers are pre-selected, without doubt.
Yeah, it's 2024. It's a selection year over here, not an election year. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's always been that way. I mean, look, you get your occasional favorites like Reagan. Everybody loved Reagan, right? Because, hey, he said the dude was an actor, right? How many presidents have actually been actors? Everybody's an actor. It's all on screen. So everybody's got a script, right? And these scripts are behind closed doors. They know what narrative they've got to stick to push. So, we're talking about that control. So you touched on it briefly about emotions, and emotions are another form of mind control, right? So when I'm with my clients, I very much try and instill to them that you've got to control their emotions, because if you don't control your emotions, those will dictate you and they will deplete you. Now, let's touch this back on the war, right? So every year over here, we have Remembrance Sunday, right? Which is where we will remember them, right? And then the trumpets played. It's like the last stand, really sad, right? And then you've got the whole country, right? And this is how fucked up it is. The whole country standing still, remembering these people that died over a century ago for us, let's say, or near enough a century, right, to protect our freedom. But it was a rigged fucking war anyway, right?
Yeah, so, it wasn't real, and it was designed to let the Nazis infiltrate undiscovered throughout the entire world so that they could continue their Hydra program, right? And so I get you on this. And the same with 9/11 over here. They fucking memorialize it every year, and it's, hey, make sure we remember, make sure we get a little bit more loosh out of you. Is there any more loosh in you for this time around? Can we squeeze a little more out?
Exactly. And that's it. And then, the emotional control. And then, you pan that across then to adrenochrome and all that narrative that's being pushed there, and babies. And look, there's nothing more fucking horrifying than that stuff. But if you're just in that world of just consuming it and we're aware of it, there's nothing I can do about it. If I see it on the street happening, I can do something about it. But I can't do anything about a worldwide network that's happening when it's just depleting people and they're becoming emotionally just, volatile. And it's because everything is energy, right? So the more emotion you're giving it, you're losing your own power. You're giving it away.
But what's and I don't disagree with you, but what is the balance between spiritual bypassing and actionable, inspired action, right? Meaning that we're not spiritually bypassing in the sense, because this in a way now can really mimic the energy of what in New Age would call we're all one. So that spirit chose that path, so therefore we let it happen because that's God wanting to experience in itself subjectively, right? But then on the other hand, we have this perspective, which you just offered, which is beautiful. So where's the balance? Where's the part where we can see this as a big picture, but how not to add our energy to a system that seems to just want our energy and it wants us to be scared? So how do we do that, but also feel like we're not bypassing things and not being actionable where we could be? You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Good question. So let's go back to the spiritual narratives. That's just more mind control. Let's be under no illusion.
Right.
Dolores Cannon will tell you are a spiritual being experiencing a physical existence. Nah,
Maybe.
Bullshit. Right. Think about this logically. Right. So a spirit, right. Best way of example, Star Wars, right. George Lucas shows it, when Anakin and they're all in spirit, right? And they're in their light body, let's say. I hate calling it light body because that's just so pushed around into woo-woo, right? So your spirit is an echo of your physical being, of who you are. If my spirit is the same of me from before, how can that happen? Because the genetics of my mother and father happened to create Ben, to create me. Ben didn't exist with my mother's and father's genetics 50 years ago because they hadn't met. So what I'm trying to say is I'm a soul, me as a soul that's come into this body. My spirit is then the echo, the spiritual carbon copy of my physical existence, an echo. So so basically what she's saying is that you're a step in. Right. So spirit to walk into a body is a step in.
Right.
Okay. So that is absolutely flawed. Did all those children, let's say that chose did we choose to experience trauma, to become abused, to lose an arm, to lose a leg, whatever it might be? No, we didn't. We didn't.
And I agree with you that from our perspective, we wouldn't, of course not. And then you're told, though, to believe or have faith, rather, in a perspective that you can't see, that maybe there's something higher and bigger and more complicated and complex going on here, which we can acquiesce to. But then where's the buffer, right? It's sort of like this idea of evolution. Everybody's super pumped about it, but there's no missing link. There's no huge gap of missing fossil evidence that's in between those two time periods. And so there's just so much conjecture. And so it feels like the evolutionary model is being pushed on you. And then you start looking into Darwin and all kinds of shit. And then you just sort of lose steam in the idea in the same way that you are greeted with this thing. And I feel that it's very complementary in that you get to a level of where you just have to have faith. And that I've got an issue with. That I don't have enough evidence to have faith, which is a fucking contradiction and a paradox in itself. But it's odd, right?
It is, isn't it? It is an oxymoron, totally, big time. So I suppose, right? Okay, so let's say that on the human level, what you're talking about there, they found fossils of tigers, right? Of all these different animals from. And it's been carbon dated, apparently, going back thousands and thousands of years, right? They have not changed. Animals have not evolved. That whole, like you said, that whole evolution, that Darwin story, bullshit. Right? That's another narrative getting pushed.
And there's a lot of questions within the narrative. So then you ask yourself, well, why is the narrative valuable? Why was the narrative installed in the first place? Like once we identify it as what it is, we don't need to bitch about the fact that it exists. We just need to sit there and say, okay, well, what purpose does it serve in our reality, in our experience?
And that is the question. Perfect question, Brand. Okay, so everything is implanted, instilled into society. It's geoengineering, right? On a mass level.
It's meoengineering.
Bingo. It is, right? So this stuff's thrown in, let's say 100 years ago, knowing full well, because they've got the script for the next 2,000 years, right? So they throw that narrative in there where mankind's intellect, I don't want to say consciousness level, but the intellect level is going up. So it's been dropped here. And then later on down the line, it's going to serve its purpose. No different than the end of days, right, in the Bible. Okay. How many years have they been saying it's end of days, end of days?
Dude, I was just talking about Bible prophecies and how it may have just been manufactured last night, dude. That's so crazy. Yeah.
Really? You said that, did you?
Yeah, we were on a hangout last night with Tyler Hansen, and we talked about this very thing, about how the Bible could be just installed, manufactured from a secretive society that just sort of wrote it thousands of years ago, has it played out. And then we're going to talk about an overarching narrative that maybe just AI implants all around, and therefore there's no individual conspiracy to any of this shit. Maybe it's just puppets puppeting out an AI program because they're all inhabited, and this is where NPCs and all of these ideals of installed agents of the Matrix here that automatically update with the program. They don't need to sort of be in backlit rooms. You know, we may visualize that that's what occurs, but maybe their avatar just sort of steps into a little fucking small closet. They get plug in the head, and then they automatically get downloaded into the new thing, and that's their smoke-filled back room, right?
Sure, it is. It is. I mean, how many times do we know that they've rewritten the Bible? Right, hundreds of times. We know this.
Muggles.
Yeah. Okay, but you're absolutely right. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy for the AI, for the system. I think when we talked on the very first episode a couple of years ago, we were talking about this, you know, like Alexander the Great, all these huge big names that have been instilled that we followed through time, and they're just serving out the system in order to keep us in the loop. You know, okay, so we're not wearing togas and sandals this time round, or, you know.
Even when you look at historical pictures of people who are famous today or political leaders or influential in some way, most of the time actors or something like that, and then have counterpart pictures in like the 1800s, the paintings in the 17 and 1500s, and they're related to crazy deities and higher ups, and they seem to keep manifesting in bodies very similar to ones that they had in previous ages or cycles.
That's right. Now, I'll tell you one that's really fucked up, right, is, I know this is a bit left field, but it's Michael Jackson, right? I don't know if you've seen the comparison of, so, you know, everybody was like looking at him thinking, what the fuck's he doing to his face? You know, why is he changing his pigmentation? Was he ashamed of being black? It was nothing to do that. Michael Jackson was an empty vessel that he believes was taken up by a spirit, a walk-in, that was a previous deity. So Michael Jackson actually changed his face to make himself look like the previous spirit, the previous embodiment that this spirit was.
Dude, I'm reading a book called The Unquiet Dead by Dr. Edith Fiore right now. Holy shit. I mean, you talk about deep possession and possession in general, and the perspective of that you can just be walking by an accident or be in the proximity of the closest soul to a horrible car accident where somebody dies or a suicide, and they float off, find you happy or angry that you're happy, hop on in your body because for some reason they can all do that, and then possess you for a while and then take that living entity down with them, sort of a thing, and tank their whole life. And this just happens, you know, just like anything.
It does. And I'm glad you brought that up. Excuse me.
Apparently. I mean, it's, based on this book. Yeah.
Dude, it's so true, right? So now let's talk about prohibition, alcoholism. Let's talk about drugs. Let's talk about not just the pharmaceuticals, but the recreational side. Everything's getting pushed. It's becoming legalized. Reverse psychology, right? And that's how they geo-engineer society. Is that you look what we've got. You can't have this. This is illegal. Oh, I want it. You know, that's what we're like, isn't it? And so the moment you've got a chink in your armor, right, your central nervous system, because maybe you've been pissed or you've been drinking only a couple of pints or a couple of glasses of wine, guess what? That's an entrance. That's access to your central nervous system.
It's a broad entrance that you're offering at will constantly, but it's even more asinine than that, I think. I think it really is just simply about being able to jump scare you, and then when you're like, in that moment, they're able to fucking hop in. It's like, again, this is why it's like a haunted house around here. And Sam Tripoli had that analogy a long time ago. And it makes sense when things sort of in the narrative of the media pop out at you and they're like, hey, we're going to come get you and you're going to need to, and then you just go, fuck off. And they're like, okay. And it goes away in that way, how you can take the wind out of the sails of narratives like that. But it still feels like this as far as now, if you amplify this up to the idea of spirit possession or a fifth dimensional realm that's all fucking around us, siphoning your energy or whatever, that you're a vehicle for things just to hop in and out of you all willy-nilly. Because then this brings up issues. And Mary and I were talking about this morning, actually, ahead of you coming on, was the idea of like, where then does this conflict with personal responsibility? Where do you then just say, well, I was just spirit possessed. Things are fucked up. I just wouldn't know what I was doing. We're going to carry on now. But then where does that come into you just going, no, I was wrong, or this is my responsibility or something like that? Like sort of ownership can you claim if this is a factor at all? And then how in that way is it just an excuse to fucking be a dickhead? You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. So to a degree, it's diminished responsibility, right? You can say, look, I didn't know what I was doing. But as long as you change, right? If you keep doing the same shit, get drunk, act like a dick, right? Hit somebody, whatever, or you continue to do it, then you're not really changing. But if you can get through it and pull yourself out of the swamp and actually recognize and say, shit, okay, this is it. Now, in fact, probably the drugs, the alcoholism, the pharmaceutical stuff, that is just, again, that stuff's just like a plaster, like a Band-Aid. It goes back to childhood trauma, right? And everybody has experienced trauma. Nobody has gone unscathed. So the point being is everybody's central nervous systems are breached.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes. There's no one escape from this. You're here to clear trauma in a place that instills trauma as you clear trauma.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. But when you become self-aware in this respect, and you adapt, and you change, and you recognize what happened to you, why you changed, why you did this, why you did that, you're basically turning it away. You're closing down to anything that can jump in, because you've recognized every single possibility which it can enter into your body, whatever it might be. Now, you say spirits, ghosts, very much ghosts in the machine. I suppose we can go to this part now, is that they are echoes. People talk about demons, about angels, about for all we know, the holographic representations from the AI system, right?
But it seems like so are you. You're just a denser vibrating hologram of it. So this is why everything here can be affected by the simulation, right? Or you can be possessed, air quotes, by something, because it's just algorithmic code. Maybe walk through a damn blip in the matrix, so you just happen to go, huh? And like you just walk through this thing as it's queefing into existence, and now you have it. And it's like, oh, well, fuck your life now. You know what I mean? It's just a really odd effect that the things around here have on you.
It is. I mean, let's look at the dirty electricity then, Edison.
All that, the food, the water, the air, all that kind of shit, dude. So we're now, because it leans, and I'm already feeling my energy go there, to this point of like victim mentality, to this like, oh, well, it's all around you, so you're hopeless to do anything about it kind of a thing. Like where's the alchemy here? Where do you get to stand up and say, man, no, fuck this, here's the power in it?
Okay, so this is the really transformational part. And I hate using that transformational.
Nah,
it is so cliche in many respects, but when you recognize everything, that everything is designed to enslave us, trap us, take our energy, right? Then you've kind of become fully self-aware in respects that, okay, I cannot depend on this system.
But you still need the system at a level. You still need to eat. You still need to drink. You still need to, you know what I mean? So it's this odd awareness that the system is what's fucking killing you. But then it's also this awareness that you need what's killing you to nourish you.
Okay. So what happens if you never needed to eat? Well, I'm just throwing this out there. What happens if our digestive systems, our intestines, are actually used for something else entirely?
Then I feel, and here's my answer to you just off the cuff, then I feel I've gone 41 years thinking that it's been something else. It's going to be really challenging for me not to think I need to put something in my face for me to continue to consume energy. I don't eat much, and it's interesting how I consume energy, but I don't completely agree with that. I will be able to release the mental limitation that has been programmed into me, which is another fucked up part about this reality. You could see the programs. You could say, yeah. If I can get over that, then I'll be fine. I can fly, right? I can teleport. I can do any of that shit. It just takes me knowing it and then jumping off the cliff. And it's like, you know what I mean? But if there's any doubt, you're going to go splat.
Yeah, of course.
So overcoming the programming is what this is. But what if there's unsurmountable programming?
Well, there is. And on top of that, more biohacking, right? So parasites have been here since day one, right? They have been probably the most archaic form of mind control since day one. So I think when you start getting into that parasite cleansing and just purging the body of everything in that respect, you feel the difference. Look, as kids, right, we would do fucking crazy stuff, right? Magical stuff. Levitate. I've heard stories. I remember things happening with me when I was a kid. I don't really want to go into them, but stuff which I couldn't explain, right? And then the more you think about it, the more it drifts away and you can't do it again, And I know I'm not the only one. there's many other stories that I've heard of people that have had really weird experiences as children, but they don't logically understand it, but it just happens.
But do you think that then, because what you're talking about here then is isolating some children from everything that we know. And so it would take human beings being able to banish all limitations on their own and then being able to frame it in a way that's teachable from an experience level to then be able to articulate to somebody how to do it. So where does that even begin? It's a chicken egg that seems like it seems insurmountable, which means that it's not. And I get this. And we're working through this, Ben, which this is what I love this most about you, dude. Is you and I get to sit here and pick this reality apart and like fucking peel the layers back and go, hang on, I see a limitation, but we both recognize that we are aware of a victim mentality that can exist within the limitation, but I feel that we're alchemizing it to see the limitation as simply that and a surmountable one at that. So we can fucking subvert it and just move on, but we need to see it and kind of be triggered by it to look at it and go, hey, fuck this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very
so I
much
think
so.
that's what we're doing here.
Thank you, dude. Yeah. And you're right. I love doing this with you as well. And do you know what? I didn't hit on what you said about the victim mentality. You recognize it. You look it in the eye and say, yeah, okay. But I'm not going to fucking be that victim, right? And that's
this is not that. Yeah.
No, this is not that. This is a recognition that you have been abused, used, and corrupted, right? That's it.
I'm recognizing that the system is set up that way on purpose for everyone to experience that. Everyone. Right. Because then again, this comes back to the thing about isolating a child in an environment to where they could grow up, where they could levitate all their life, and then therefore be safe enough to teach this to other people to do this in a breakaway civilization type of a thing. And then this is maybe where we're talking about, you know, fucking expansive landmass like Nos Confundum, his book. You know what I'm talking about, the big ass place where the expansive lands that go out, and then maybe then you would just advance to another level of the realm, and then you're able to get out that way. You know what I mean? Kind of a thing.
Very much so. Yeah. Well, again, it's difficult, dude. It's
because it's, how do you even put your finger on what's going on here? You know what I mean? It's like we're just beginning to recognize the traps. And so then, and we're formulating a reality outside of the traps that would have set the traps into motion. But yeah, how do you do that from within the reality?
Yeah, okay. But maybe the question should be, why are they doing those traps? Why?
It's why, but also it's why can we see them? Why are we intuitively guided, if programming exists, for us to look at these things as challenges to be overcome rather than as, let's just go with that and move forward, like the rest of the sheeple here. Yeah.
Okay. So why haven't the other sheeple seen it? Why is it only some people have?
I'm not as interested in why they don't, because I'm very over that. I feel that they're very just part of an automatic system here, a Borg mindset that just goes along with whatever and physically can't see beyond that. Like, and it's fun. I have a lot of empathy for it. But what I then question is, why are we able to see this place as askew? Why does it appear so fucked up to us?
Okay. So, right. So, as you know, soul is what me is all about. And that's the part of us that recognizes it. It triggers something within us. Right? Why was I born to become a slave to the system, to have to make money to live, to exist? Right? And that's just basic shit. You know, why did I have to do it? It doesn't make any sense. I didn't choose to come here to do this. Right? It's like a never-ending cycle. So, yeah. Brand, I mean, this is difficult stuff. To going back on the kids and putting them in an isolated area. Yeah, you could do that. But then you see the problem that we've got then is people who would try and set up an off-grid living way of life. It would become like Lord of the Flies. Did you ever read that as a kid? Or
yeah.
Right.
Well, and so not let kids run the shit. I'm not saying that. I'm saying
no. I think what I'm trying to get to, Brand, is that right in Lord of the Flies, you've got these two camps that are set up, but these kids have brought in all of society's shit with them. So there's already, and that's what I'm saying is that they would still infect this new area off grid because they're bringing stuff in.
And this is why you nailed it. This is why I asked the question earlier about how would you, because it would first take a human being to be able to institute that institution, right, or that technology, that safe place for those ideas to grow. It would take somebody who would be able to create that safe place without any sort of, we want to make sure we don't, and make sure that also we are looking out for, right? So then you're instilling intentions on the experiment already. right? So how do you get a clean experiment if that is even successful? First of all, I'm not saying anybody take kids, fucking throw them in a cave and do anything like this. What I'm saying is for purely philosophical talk, how would you isolate a child? Let's say I volunteered for this at a soul level, to be in an isolated environment that was conducive to everything that my soul needed to grow into the most powerful superhuman here. Could that environment be set up without bias?
Probably not.
I know. So it's like
you're probably looking at second or third generation, right? If it was implemented, it's kind of like a weaning process. You know, you start it off, and then it's just kind of like chipping away at what was part of the old programming and conditioning. But then we're getting into the whole superhuman agenda again, and the evolutionary side. So it's again the soul, the spirit, that side, which is. And then, okay, let's look at Hollywood, right? Well, they've been pushing out for the last 15 years, everything about superheroes, right? That, you know, your Thor on electricity, you can fly.
I'm a huge comic book whore, by the way. I love
dude, me too. I love, that's all I'd read as a kid. I'd love, because it's fantasy, totally out there, like Superman. I love Superman. I had Superman wallpaper all over my bedroom as a kid. You know,
do you think it connects us to past lives or an alternate version of us that really does that shit? And that's why we're so like, oh, this is so cool. You know what I mean?
It could do. It could do, maybe because it's such a complete contrast. Now we're coming back to the mind, right?
It's the shedding of limitations, yes.
Yeah. But more so, it's the narratives, right? This whole illusion, probably 90% of it is psychological. And this is why I call myself as probably a holistic psychologist, is that in order to get through whatever programming or neural hacking has happened, you got to really get back to a logical base, right? Centered brain. And yeah, you wanted to be Superman, He-Man, you know, master of the universe, but it's all been
Spider-Man or something cool.
Spider-Man.
He-Man was for commercials. That was to sell you fucking shit.
Yeah, I wonder how many people turned out gay after watching that.
Oh, man. I'm sure a few. You know, but it's a fascinating thing when we're talking about then, you know, kids being influenced at a childhood like that by narratives like this, because it comes with a duality concept mixed in with it constantly. It's a battle of good versus evil and evenly matched, and then wits are what win out, and then it ends up being pretty mental at the end of a physical battle of pretty evenly matched characters, right? And so it ends up being this wit, this power, this perseverance of will and spirit that wins out in the end. And so do you think that, though, itself is a narrative, like that's even available to us as an option of experience, rather than you're just sort of soul food for something else and there's no battle to speak of, because that would imply that both sides have an even chance of winning and you're nowhere close to being as powerful as what's feeding on you?
Okay, so if you just ignore it, so as kids, right, Tom and Jerry, the devil and the angel would sit on the shoulders, right? And that stuff is incepted so early on, right? Not only that, the Bible pushes it, good and bad, evil and good, you know. But if it's good, then why did God want to kill, you know? It doesn't make any sense. It's totally BS, and it's to give this illusion of the good cop, bad cop routine. But we're all in the same jail, right? And when you stop feeding that, or the white hats, or the black hats, or, you know, when you stop feeding that narrative and actually just take your own independence back and say, right, okay, I'm going to start, fuck all this shit. I'm just going to start being me, loving me, healing. That's when stuff really changes, because you're not feeding the hopium wheel, right? And there's so many people on the hopium. Oh, Trump's coming back in. The white hats are going to be, you know, you can see it. It's all going to kick off this year again.
Well, I've talked about, you know, Prison Planet and shit like that, and people go, oh, I don't like that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like it either. What do you think of it as a possible, you know, thing that could be going on here? And they're like, no, I don't think that could be going on. I'm like, well, why not? And they're like, because I don't like it. I'm like, no, I get that you don't like it, but where do you ideologically separate from your desire of what this place is to that it is a potentiality that maybe is what's occurring? And so there's obvious disconnect. I have obvious preference to what I would like to be going on here, but I'm not unwilling to look at the dark shit and go, hey, that's possible too.
Very much so. And unfortunately, we've all got those rose-tinted glasses because we want to see the best out of every situation.
We have preferences.
Of course, yeah. We want to believe that, you know, there is somebody looking out for us and everything's going to be hokey dokey. But
even beyond that, I don't care about that anymore either, because I've disconnected from the idea of a daddy govern me harder. You're here to save me. You're guiding me, because I don't have connection with spirit guides and all that kind of shit. You know, we've talked about this. So even with that, I just think an even playing field for me to have all the information and a fair shot at whatever it is I'm here to discover. That's it. And I don't think that you're going to be held off from the discovery. I think that the real trick here is to float with the uneasiness and the uncertainty and all of those kind of things. Not in faith per se. Maybe some people get through it with faith, but maybe it's just sort of that's just the way it's going. And it's easier to do it that way than to struggle the fuck out of this place. And so if you sort of go with it a little bit in a way, but also don't let bullshit, you know, it's a do no harm but take no shit mentality, right? You're not here to facilitate any kind of bullshit, have your bullshit radar really tuned up, and then float through it. But those on your path that really need you, just help them out. And then beyond that, don't, you know, fucking go for the dangly keys that distract you from your mission. And that's it. Just kind of float with it.
Yeah, but you see, right, if you always do, this is probably one of my famous quotes, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always had. Right. So if we don't actually implement a degree of change, right, where actually people start to stand up, guess what? The police force have all decided to quit because they know it's rigged, or that's just, you know, an example. But order out of chaos, right, is one of the big phrases with one of the societies. You know, I don't really want to get into societies. That will be for maybe another chat. But, you know, they create the chaos so they can provide the order. No different than COVID, the vaccine, you know, and it's all about control. Why? Because the moment you step out of control, you're breaking from the system. But again, what you see, they latch you in with devices. You know, you can't go anywhere. You can't do anything without your device. And this is all preempted. You know, we talked earlier about why is that narrative planted 100 years ago? Why did Steve Jobs create these devices, or Bill Gates? You know, it's everything is by design.
Everything. Yeah. And even those figures that pop up. And again, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were people that have been seen in old photos of historical figures. And so maybe they're just a supplant, and then it comes in, wears a turtleneck in this life and gives you an iPhone and then changes the world in that way, but gets you subscribed to a scribe mirror that everybody has in their pocket at all times. So it is sort of a ritualistic thing that everyone is now very attached to, that I think is going to be a very easy next step. And a lot of people think, 'cause I'm not isolated in this, a lot of folks think that it's going to be a very next easy step into getting this physically implanted into your body. And then that's that Neuralink shit that we're talking about, that connection, that interface, that transhumanism. That's where they can literally come in and biohack you without any signal loss, as it were, because then they're directly connected to you.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, again, probably going back to the first point of neural hacking, right? All the different wave states, whether it's, you know, they talk about this big in spirituality and meditation. If you hit the delta, the theta, the gamma, all these different brainwave states, think of yourself. I know. I think I touched on this on the first episode, that like we're in an arena and the Dodgems bumper cars, but just put that to the side. But we are antennas, right? So we're perpetually picking up different signals. So you might get a brainstorming idea, right? And I think Tesla probably touched on this as well, that, you know, we are like receivers. But actually having the ability to not receive, to not listen to that, be counterintuitive to a degree, you know, like, oh, I had this thought that we should do this. Well, maybe not, because maybe that isn't your thought. Maybe something's whispering in your ear. Maybe the system's talking to you. You know, then then we get into the spiritual side, channelers, people channeling the Pleiadians, or, dude, they've all been saying the same shit for decades, the same narrative. Right. Oh, dear loved ones, you know, the great event is coming. And, you know, honestly, when I went through this awakening in 2015, right, I went through every single channeler, right? And no word of a lie, I wasted my life, right, going back through a glimmer of hopium that there was something coming to save me, to save us. And the realization that all of it, from the angelics to the Pleiadians, the Andromedans, you name it, it's the same fucking message. Same message. And there's the CIA, and I'm absolutely adamant of this. You've got some big names in that community that are CIA plants. pushing that shit. Pushing it. Is the gateway process. Yeah, and what's that about? It's about you can walk through walls. You just have to tap into the gateway process. And yeah, really, how does that work? No, you're connecting to the system. Look, trust me, everything I'm talking about, dude, is from my experience as well. I'm not just shooting from the hip. I've been there. I've done the channeling side, and it didn't feel right. I knew something was trying to connect through me, and talk through me, and it doesn't feel right. It's not authentic.
Such a weird thing, because then you talk about, the way you phrased it, man, is now I'm thinking that it is like the light body thing never connected with me. I never thought, oh, I'm a light body, because I just don't perceive reality that way, no matter how hard I try or how pumped I would be if it happened, but I just don't perceive it that way. But whenever you talk about being dialed into a system, like literally phased into a system, maybe it is via fiber optics, you know what I mean? And that's what we mean by light body. It means that your consciousness is literally just, maybe we're all just AI, dude, becoming self-aware kind of a thing, to where really light body and systems and programs and space and dimensions and stuff, it's all just that. It's all a cube. Maybe it's this. Maybe it just all fits in a crystal this size, and this is all of reality, and it just is multidimensional, multifaceted, is never ending and infinite, and it's just in somebody's pocket or in the ground buried on a planet somewhere, if that exists at all. It's just interesting when your whole ability to perceive this place is based on your ability to perceive this place, which makes it real or not.
Yeah.
It's a mind fuck in itself, man. It's odd and it's nauseating at some points. Do you feel okay with where you are with reality right now? Like, do you feel comfortable with everything?
I feel comfortable with me. That's all I got to care about. And that's right. I came into this existence on my own. I will depart this existence on my own, on my own terms. So, and that's not being selfish. It's being self-assured, right? And self-confident in respects of knowing myself. That's all I got to do. I've got to know that if something happened to me when I was 3 or 4 years of age that affected me, that I can correct that I can change that pattern. Because fundamentally, all these things that happen to us, remember, 90% of it is psychological, right? And then, okay, let's look at how many millions of broadcasters there are, podcasters are pushing out information. They're all saying the same stuff. A lot of them are repeating the same stuff. So again, I know we've talked about this before in previous shows, but I only need to worry about me in the greatest respect. Of course, I have compassion for others, but the moment I start taking on other people's shit, it's going to bring me down. It's going to affect me, So if you could help people to become self-aware, to become self-dependent, and yeah, okay, maybe we are the AI becoming self-aware, but we're more than that. Because if we were just the AI, why would they do so much to control us? Why would they do so much to feed off us? That's the bit that doesn't make sense, because we are souls.
In the projection model you have, and I'd like to actually talk about this a little bit here, but tease it actually, because we're going to probably do most of this in the afterthought. So join us for those if you want in the Patreon link down below, guys. But before we do all of that, let's touch on the secret of secrets, this Bucegi Mountain secrets, because this ties into what you're talking about here, about being a projection, about this place being malleable and being something that could be... It honestly, it's fascinating, Ben. So I can't wait to go into this with you. And also, I'd like to tease here that you and I are probably going to be doing a series on what we're talking about here, and do some real deep dives and keep peeling away at this fucking place. And I'm really looking forward to that, man.
Yeah, that'll be great. And look, I think to probably label it as a series, but it's to help people. You see, I spent a lot of my time in my head, right? And that's the part where we become unstuck. We spend too much time up here. We're disconnecting from heart, from soul, the authentic self. So if we can put stuff out there, which is going to keep people, on the tracks, let's say, rather than really going out there and providing a degree of factual information, not just hearsay, he says with this Bucegi mountain. But I think probably the key part about it is the technology part, which is really interesting.
It's very interesting. Okay, so I tell you what, I'm just going to share screen right here real quick, and then let's talk about this a little bit, but we will do a deep dive into this in the afterthought here. So here is the document that you sent me here, and I'm actually going to go ahead and include these links, one to your video here, which I will also share for your dope ass. Check that out, guys. The dope ass Merlin's Cave podcast here. This is an awesome breakdown of the document that you sent. So both of these will be linked down in the show description. Check that out. But this is absolutely fascinating. Let's just touch on the summary of the discovery real quick. If you want to run through this with us, and then we'll kick it over into the after show, dude.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, people talk about flat Earth, right? And they've even got nicknames now, flurfs. If you're a flurfer, it almost sounds like a bit of a South Park sketch, but you see that they make comedy value of something which is maybe real to shame. So are we flat? Okay, it's up to you to decide. I'm not here to convince you, but I know that everything's been a lie. But point being is 4 primary tunnels and subtunnels which lead on an underground network system, right? Which is really fascinating in itself. The projection room as well. It's almost kind of like a bit like Prometheus in respect of the engineers, these giants as well. And I think what's really interesting, more to the point, is that look, the technology that they found within this system, within Romania, goes back 50,000 years, which surpasses all of the civilizations that we pretty much know about. Right. So technology has always been here. And this is what Mia's been saying since day one. And probably the other part as well, which is interesting, Brand, is I think scroll down the page. I think it was there. Was it there? Right. Yeah. Okay. It's in Romania. Now, Bucegi Mountain is next to a place called Sinai. Right, the Bible, Mount Sinai. How do you spell Sinai? Sinai, right? Sin-AI. There you look. Maybe I'm stretching, okay?
I love it.
It's a bit uncanny, isn't it?
But sin is like a sine, right? So sin is in math, like sine, cosine, tangent, right? So it could be just a mathematical code. Rather than like sin, like we think, oh, like ooh is evil, but it could be just literally a mathematical code or an algorithm.
It really could. It really could. And I think this kind of, now of course you got to take a big pinch of salt reading this as well, because there's still a couple of agendas being pushed that I feel in here. So we're never going to get the full truth, but snippets. And if you can cherry pick out the parts which actually feel right, it even talks about having the ability to control the weather and flood the planes of existence, to control everything. So, we talk about HARP and we talk about, all this stuff. It's been here for thousands of years. It's just the victor, whoever has control, has always had it.
Yeah, but HARP's like the shitty carbon copy because they couldn't make it out of dope stone. They couldn't make a mountain, so they just kind of stuck a bunch of pipes in the ground, just like they did with the TR-3B. It's like a shitty knockoff of the reverse engineered technology,
Exactly. Yeah. So for anybody watching this, look, this is a free download on my site, so feel free to get it and have a read yourself. It's really in depth. Yeah,
it's in depth. 55 pages long, though, guys. So you can definitely get through this. It's fascinating, and I highly recommend it. And you and I are going to break this down. So I'm going to be linking this absolutely down in the show description. But this idea of tunnels and it being a projection room that then projects our reality, where then we go back up here to the top with this image that depicts this Hindu drawing of the Mount Kailash, where there's this temple underground that then projects our reality through the Black Mountain that then projects through the toroidal field, and that's how we see and experience our reality. Like, this is wild shit, dude. And there's 4 entrances all around the world in like the Gobi Desert and all this stuff. So we're going to break this down and get into it, man. I find it absolutely fascinating, the work that you've done on that, and well done. And yes, it will be linked down there below, as well as all the other ways to find you and your other episodes on the show. Yeah. So we've talked about a lot here, dude. We have a lot still to look forward to with you. And before we wrap, just let me know, leave us with a bit of hope, and then we'll go into our afterthought here. So what gets you out of bed every morning, Ben? What keeps you moving, man?
Me, I mean, for the last 6 months, I have taken time out. Got stuff to deal with here in reality, you know. But no, probably knowing that things can change, but we got to stand up, right? We got to actually implement the change. Don't forget, if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always had. So it's basically change your algorithm. Stand up, say no, say fuck off. You know, you're entitled to do that. You know, we've become such a yes people pleaser society because of trauma, because of, you know, we just want the easiest route. We just want to go with the flow, but don't go with the flow. Fuck the flow, right? Be you, go against the grain, you know, and if I can help inspire other souls just kind of love themselves, because that's fundamentally right to the core, that's what it's all about. Magnetism, loving you, becoming more magnetic.